It's so weird, like looking back at my my manga backlog on my Kindle because I have like a bunch of things that I haven't checked out, that I've had samples for a long time. A lot of it isn't good. So over the past couple of months, I've been like slowly trekking through my list, trying to get through my backlogs, trying to get caught up in all the stuff I've been reading. I've been finding some pretty good books that I really have been getting around to reading for a long time. The High Window, amazing. Oda of One Piece fame recommended it in an SBS actually, so very thankful for that. I love the book so far. I'm reading The Cloud of Sparrows, right? Great novel, very similar to Shogun. Uh, it's it is phenomenal so far from what little I've read of it. And I also ended up like buying a manga, right? I ended up buying this manga that I've had on the back burner for a long time, Orochi, right? I don't remember where it came from. I think it like popped up when I was looking up like Junji Ito, like manga or something. This was not by Junji Ito, but like the artwork like strongly reminded me of him. I think Orochi was like the predecessor to Junji Ito. I think that was like a major inspiration for his style. And like upon reading this, like I almost feel like it could have been written by the same person, right? Like the artwork looks similar, the protagonist looks like a Junji Ito girl, like it has like a similar vibe and a theme, but in a lot of ways, I think it's actually superior, right? Maybe I'm just being kind of I don't know. I hate calling myself a Junji Ito hater because I am kind of a fan. I've read so much stuff, but like uh Orochi really feels if it doesn't have like the same kind of problems that Junji Ito has, right? Where Junji Ito has this like tendency to just go off the wall and insane and just like make go completely like all in on like a completely ridiculous idea to the point where it doesn't make any sense anymore, right? Where a lot of his stuff is like he's very hit or miss, right? In my experience, right? Like I like, plenty of stuff he's made, Uzumaki, Tomie, like not so much his short story stuff. I can't think of anything his short story collections that I've really enjoyed. But like, Orochi kind of caught my eye. Like reading Orochi, like I was very much reminded of like the strengths of Junji Ito, but not a lot of the weaknesses. In the sense where like instead of like being like a small short story, it's basically like it's very much like okay, so it's basically what I read was like Orochi Perfect Edition, like Volume 1 or something, right? It is essentially two stories in like a single volume. And in a lot of ways, I really, really think this suits the style better because you have a lot more content, you have a lot more time to like flesh out each individual story, you have time to establish characters, and you have time to like set things up and then have like a surprising payoff, right? Like unlike Junji Ito, who I think often pulls things out of his ass, right? Like, well, like it felt like there was a real progression here with like both of the stories. Sisters was the first one, and I don't remember what the second one was called. But like I read this and found myself like very, very immediately drawn into the world of like Orochi, who I understood immediately to be the anti-Tomie, a helpful girl with dark powers who so, who only wants to help, but somehow makes everything worse. And like never seems to be like remorseful about it. It's honestly kind of worse, right? She comes off as like more creepy than Tomie in a way because Tomie at least like dies, like she comes back, because she's the super thought. But like Orochi, like legit tries to justify her actions. Like she always tries to like do this thing. Orochi tries to do this thing where she always tries to like justify her actions. Like, oh, I need to help these people. I need to do this. Like I I need to do whatever I can. Like I'm here to help. And like her involvement just leads into these situations where like she somehow makes things way way worse than they needed to be, and they were already messed up to begin with in like both situations. And I really like this about the character where she seems like this larger than life figure that just inserts herself into these plots that have nothing to do with her. And yet, like, her influence somehow just makes everything even more messed up and even more tragic. And, like, the instant that things can't possibly get any worse, she just leaves. Right? Right? She's just like, oh, I rarely have sympathy for other people anyway. And then she just leaves. And, like, weirdly, she doesn't age. Like, I don't know. Like, this is the point of the character, but, like I said, larger than life, right? She always looks the same. She always has this same like vacant expression on her face. She like pretends to be a nice person, but actually has like these really sinister powers and gets involved in like this really crazy shit. Like it's a really interesting character. I find myself like really intrigued by her as a concept. Very similarly to how I felt about Tomie. Well, Tomie, you end up laughing at Tomie, right? Because she's so over the top and so ridiculous, and like the stunts she pulls are just so laughably like exaggerated, like like often in Junji Ito's works. But like Orochi, like I think like I said, this goes back to why I think it's better. Like Orochi comes off as a lot more grounded, as a much more like an actual person. Like I'm only trying to help, and like you really do believe that she's trying her best to like make things right and to help people, but like you totally can understand right off the bat that she must be like the most autistic spurg on the planet, because she doesn't understand that maybe you shouldn't bring people back from the dead. Maybe you shouldn't like mess with people's memories, or like get involved in like these crazy situations. Maybe you should just leave well enough alone, okay? like I'm really interested in seeing like what the further volumes do, because I've only read the first two. I believe there are three total. So going by what I've seen, I'm not sure if they're all available, but like I read the first deluxe edition, right? I don't know if there are more stories outside of these collections, but like I find myself like just hooked on this. Like I've been reading a lot of manga in general, and I haven't been reading a lot of Junji Ito because I feel like kind of burned out on his stuff. But like reading this has kind of got me fired up on like reading horror manga again, and like maybe trying some other writers. I've already like downloaded a sample of Orochi Volume 2, so I'm really curious to see just how things develop in future volumes. But like going by what I've seen in this one, like I came away like very, very impressed. I was very pleased. Like I don't think I felt this like positively about a horror manga since I first read Uzumaki. Now, Uzumaki's probably better than this. I think in a lot of ways I really like Orochi, but it really has this feeling where like, okay, like I don't know, like Uzumaki, I think is Junji Ito's at his best, right? Where he comes up with some ridiculous concept and just makes it work, right? And then like Orochi's grounded, but in a way that kind of makes it less interesting, right? In a way, you know. Like there were like a handful of times when I was reading this where like it felt a little bit too padded, right? That like, do we really need to see all this stuff? But you get like surprising twists and turns in both stories, and you end up like getting really, really invested in it. I think it's masterfully executed, going by my plebeian excuse. Well, I suppose I've been reading manga for years now, so I guess I'm not really a pleb anymore. Like, am I still a neophyte? Like, I hate calling myself like a master, because I don't like a manga master, because I didn't haven't been reading this stuff very long. But like, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I highly recommend you check this one out.